Good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? Hey, I just want to touch base with you. It's been a good week, and I got a chance to talk. We were talking to someone, and where we was talking about preparation. And this message today is pretty much going to be in the lines of preparing, or to prepare, or to not prepare. Um, that's the question: to prepare or not prepare. Um, Life is preparation in itself. I relate it to a moving sidewalk. You know, on sidewalks you go to when you're at the airport, they call it moving sidewalks, not escalators, but moving sidewalks, where there are horizontal walks that you're on. Life is one of those. That's the analogy I want to use today. It's one of those. You know, you can get on it, you can walk, you can stand, you can even try to walk backwards. Um, you could literally do nothing. But the point of this illustration is this moving sidewalk is going to take you from one place to the other, whether you like it or not. It's moving. It's going to happen. And you know, if you ever been to the airport and you notice if you when you're on these moving sidewalks, it's not continuous. They have breaking points in these sidewalks where um, it'll take you, and just like an escalator, you have to prepare to get off because you're moving at a constant pace. And as you're moving on that constant pace, you can see others that chose not to, in this case, not to get on the moving sidewalk, and they're literally walking on your side, but they're walking manually on steady pavement. So the moving sidewalk, you're literally going faster most of the time than the normal walking pace. So when you get to these intermittent stops where it meets the pavement again or meets the steel sidewalk, you have to prepare for that, because if you're not looking, you'll trip just because there's a little incline, but there's momentum on the moving sidewalk that's going to cause for a shift or a abrupt change in pace once you get to the stationary sidewalk. So if you're not paying attention, you'll stumble. If you're not paying attention, you'll fall because you have momentum. Whether you want to or not, even if you're standing still, you have momentum. So, you know, most of the time when I'm on these things, I'm getting on these movable walks because I'm trying to get to my destination in the airport quicker than it would be me just walking. So, you know, whether I have my luggage or I'm walking with a backpack, I'm walking on this moving sidewalk. It's just what I do. So even if those, you know, there's on those moving sidewalks, there's two lanes. There's those that are standing still because maybe they're tired and they're on the walk because you know they just want to rest and they want to get to where they want to be in the resting position. Or those like myself, I'm in the other lane and I'm walking through because I'm trying to get to the destination faster. Two different lanes, two different thought processes, two different agendas. Regardless of whether I'm sitting still or regardless of or if I'm walking, um, when we hit these stationary plateaus, there's preparation that has to be there. You've got to prepare to negotiate this momentum shift. Hear me. You have to prepare. Whether you like it or not, you're going to hit this plateau. You're going to hit this time that you're going to have to make a decision on how you're going to navigate this obstacle. Because at that point, when you have momentum and there's come to a stopping point, you have to negotiate how you're going to navigate that obstacle. I hope I'm making sense today. Um, so we were talking about, I was talking with a friend about our lives and how, regardless of decisions you make or don't make, regardless of, you know, whether you want to go or you don't want to go, regardless of whether you feel like it or don't feel like it, regardless or whether or not you were prepared or not prepared, regardless of what your upbringing was, and what type of household you're in, regardless if you're in a single parent or a multiple parent household, regardless if you went to college, regardless of if you were churched all your life, regardless of the level of schooling you achieved or didn't achieve, regardless of you do have to be in good health, if you're in good health or bad health, regardless of if you have help from your mate or not. You get where I'm going with this. Regardless of that, life moves on. You're going to move whether you want it to or not. Even if you sit there and do nothing, you're going at a pace. I hope this is making sense to someone today. Regardless of whether or not you move or you attempt to move, you're moving. Hear me. I'll give you another example. Earth's gravity and the rotation of the Earth, we're constantly moving. As you're sitting and watching this podcast right now, whether you recognize it or not, you're moving. However it be so slow to you, in the relative space that you're in, whether you recognize it or not, you are moving, whether you want to or not. It's called gravity. It's called the Earth's spin. It's called momentum. You're doing it. Even as you're sitting here on your couch, in your car, at work, watching this video, you're moving. I'm going somewhere with this. In Romans 8:28, in this passage, we're talking about all things work together for the good of those that love him and that are according to his purpose. Excuse me. But it also goes on to talk about how he foreknew. And those he foreknew, he also predestined. And also those that he predestined, he also called. And those that he called, he justified. And those that he justified, he glorified. Key word in here, you were foreknew and you were predestined. We all know that we were put on this earth for a specific reason, for specific tasks as Christians. Whether you accept it or not, there was something assigned to you, and you have some choices you have to make to meet these assignments. When you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and you commit to be about his purpose, you also commit to being able to discern from him to be able to get to where you need to be. Because once again, whether you commit or not, you're on this path. You're in motion. You're on this walkway. The key is you're being purposed or predestined for multiple points in your life. So as we're talking about this moving escalator, there's going to be a point where you're going to have to make a decision someplace. And there's directions at that point. When you get to that point, it's up to us to choose whether we're going left or right. We're going to take a break. There's directions at the meeting point. And you have to make a decision. If he foreknew you and you're predestined and you've been justified and glorified, that all means that there's provisions there for you at that junction to get to where you got to go, because you're going there anyway. You're going there. Now, how quickly you get there is up to you. How slowly you get there is up to you. Whether you want to go up the rough side of the mountain or you want to take the smooth side of the mountain, you have to get there. It's up to you. From mountain to mountain, any mountain you go up to, when you go up and when you go up to the pinnacle and you come back down, you're going to come back down to a valley before you come back up to the next mountain. It's called life. It's called this moving walkway of life. There are things, whether you want to or not, you're going to have to navigate. Key point here. In your navigation, once again, in your navigations, He's giving you provisions and insight and wisdom to navigate those things that have to occur in your life. Now, if you choose not to learn the lessons as they're being given to you, once you meet that next plateau, you could be coming in too hot, you could be coming in too slow, but you determine how easy this journey will be. I'm gonna give you another example. Throughout high school, I was pretty good in math. But I remember early on in my 9th, 10th grade year, whatever year that was, when we were exposed to algebra, I think it's before geometry. There's certain things in algebra that I never grasped. I got through it, to get the grade. I managed it, but how many of us know it's not about just passing the test? It's understanding the lesson as you're going through it. Because once again, it's preparing me for something. My algebra class was preparing me for my trigonometry class, which was also preparing me for my calculus class. You can skip the lesson if you want. You can, abort the mission. You can skip the class today and never learn the concepts. I don't even remember the names of the concepts back then, but you can skip it if you want to. But rest assured, when it's time to get to that trigonometry class and it's time to get to that calculus class, those things that you didn't learn are going to come up to bite you. Hear me, I'm hoping I'm helping somebody. I'm trying to make it plain today. It's upon us to prepare for the inevitable. Matthew 24:44 says we must be ready at all times, for Jesus will come when we least expect it. It's up to us to prepare for that. The day is coming. We're predestined to see him in another life. And there's going to be, at that time, there's going to be judgment. And all those things that we did or didn't do are going to come into play at this point in time. That's the ultimate destination for us. Sooner we're all going to have to, every knee is going to bow. And we're going to have to give, what is the word? We're going to have to give account for what we've done or didn't do. It's once again, it's the same as the parable with the talents, with the 3 individuals that had to answer to their master. He gave all 3 of them an equal amount. Some chose to do something with it. Some chose to do a little with it. Some chose to do nothing with it. You'll be judged on the talents and what you've done with what you were given. Hear me. I hope this is making sense. So, as we navigate through life and we prepare for these next steps and we looking at, where we are in our life and why we're here, and then we get to a certain place, we're going to get to a place where there's going to have to be a navigation. Whether you like it or not, you're going to a place. It's up to you. My whole goal in this conversation, I know it's taking me a minute to get there, but it's up to you to decide if you're going to be prepared when you get there. Hear me out. I'm going to a certain place in my life. I know where my life is headed. He's shown me where I've been predestined to go. And if those are listening to my voice, if you listen to this, you're probably under the same direction and trajectory that I'm on. You understand that God has some things for you. You're going. If you're a certain age, you're going to a certain place. You may not know what that next step is after that, but at this point, there's certain things you're striving for. Even if your goal is to own a home, if you know you're going to own a home and you're going to have to move and you're going to have to navigate from one dwelling space to another, if you're going to have to do this, there's things that you must do to prepare for that. I'm just giving you something in the natural here. So, for some of us, that means that, we may need to go contact the bank and go try to get pre-qualified for a loan to be able to buy a house. That may be somebody else. That's maybe somebody's story today. Where, if you're going to have to buy a house, there's certain things you have to do. There, in the world system, there's a certain credit score that you need to get a reasonable rate or to even qualify for someone to give you their money to do what you need to do as far as your dwelling place. It's not their responsibility. It's not their job to make sure that you have money needed to go buy the home that you need. You have to prepare for that. You may need to go clean up your credit score. You may need to pay down some bills. You may need to get some things taken off, some negative things taken off your credit history. There's things you have to do. You may need to go get another job and build a case history or a history of making a certain amount of money. You may need to save up a certain 20% to be able to put down, but there's things you have to do to prepare for that day. Now, whether you know it or not, your lease is going to be up soon. Whether you want to admit it or not, you know your lease is going to be up sooner or later. And at least if you're not going to renew that lease, you need to start preparing for another place. You know, my point is there's a date. There's a date tied to what you need to do. There's a date and time tied to what the next step is. If you don't prepare, doesn't matter. Once again, this walkway of life is moving. Whether you prepare or not, you're moving. Your life is moving. We're using an example of you're physically moving to a house. But whatever that is, there's preparation that has to be done. It doesn't matter if you chose to prepare or not. You're still moving. So this is what I had to tell myself. Leonard, you can do this the easy way, or you can do this the hard way. Regardless, you're going to have to account for what you've done. Regardless, you're going to have to prepare to navigate this next situation. What are you doing to prepare for this? The question is, what are you doing to prepare for it? You're on this moving sidewalk of life, whether you like it or not. Whether you choose to run through life, whether you choose to walk through life, or whether you just choose to sit still and do nothing but what God gave you, you're going to have to prepare for the next step. What are you doing to prepare? Regardless, you have to go. You know, in Genesis, where we are, we're talking about Joseph being in a position where he was foretold of 7 years of plushness, 7 years of abundance, 7 years of everything being great. But he is also told Pharaoh that there was also going to be 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh, being a wise man, knowing that he wasn't as wise as he needs to be, he put Joseph in charge to manage that. And what Joseph did was he prepared for the 7 years of famine. So in the good years, knowing where he was going, because God told him that you're going to have 7 years of abundance. It is wise that in these 7 years, we're talking about Genesis 41, and specifically 32 and 33, we're talking about preparing for the bad years, preparing for the good years. Once again, you got to prepare for the good just like you prepare for the bad. In the good years, you put things up, you get things in order. When you're in your right mind, you hear me say this in past. Sometimes when I know I'm in my right mind and I'm thinking clearly, I put parameters up in my life. Hear me, guys. I put parameters and bumpers up in my life so that when I'm not in my right mind, I've already got safety rails, safety guards, bumper guards. If you're in the bowling alley, you put the bumper guards up for the children to play bowls, so to keep the ball out the alley. You put guards up. I do certain things when I'm in my right mind, so when I'm in my wrong mind, I'm covered. I hope I'm speaking to somebody. I do things, I put governors in place when I'm in my right mind to prepare myself for when I'm in my wrong mind. In 7 years of abundance, you prepare. So things are good, right? Things are good for you right now. You should be doing things to prepare for the bad that's going to come. Once again, you go up a hill, you're going to plateau, you're going to come back down, and you're going to go to a valley. You know, you're going to be in a valley. Life is peaks and valleys. You have to prepare for both. Whether you're preparing for Jesus, which we all are or should be, or you're preparing to buy a house, sooner or later, you're going to have to move from one place to the other, from this life to the next, from leasing to owning. You're going to have to prepare. What are you doing to prepare? I hope this makes sense. Love you guys. We'll talk soon.